welcome here at Menopause University. I welcome everybody. My goal is to make the rest of your life the best of your life. This is the last tutorial in our unit on endometrial uterine cancer. It began with video number 320, and this is video number 339. That means that including this video, I have given you a total of 20. All told, these 20 videos constitute everything you need to know in order to understand endometrial uterine cancer, prevent endometrial uterine cancer, and manage endometrial uterine cancer. The only thing I haven't addressed is what happens after you've had endometrial uterine cancer. So that's our topic for today. It is so common for women to get a diagnosis of endometrial uterine cancer, get treated for it, and then wonder how to get on after that. Successful menopause management and making the rest of your life the best of your life requires that you know what's next. Although all of chapter 31 in my book is on endometrial uterine cancer, this video is an extra, so be sure you watch it. So, what do you suppose your options include if you've had endometrial uterine cancer? You already know what causes it, why it causes it, and how to prevent it. So using that knowledge, how would you answer this quiz question? Be sure to answer true or false as you go along, because that makes the possibility of multiple correct options easier to decipher. Which of the following statements is true about menopause management after treatment and cure of endometrial uterine cancer? A. It is safe to use progesterone replacement, but unsafe to use estrogen replacement. B. It is safe to use both estrogen and progestogen HRT. C. It is unsafe to use any form of HRT. D. It is safe to use bioidentical HRT, but unsafe to use non-bioidentical HRT. E. It is safe to use compounded HRT, but unsafe to use pharmaceutical HRT. F. It is safe to use pharmaceutical HRT, but unsafe to use compounded HRT. G. It is safe to use either pharmaceutical or compounded HRT. H. It is safe to use vaginal estrogens that do not travel throughout your body, but unsafe to use any estrogens that do travel throughout your body. I. It is safe to use herbs that contain estrogen or progesterone. J. It is unsafe to use herbs that contain estrogen or progesterone. K. It is safe to use estrogen-containing herbs, but not progesterone-containing herbs. L. It is safe to use progesterone-containing herbs, but not estrogen-containing herbs. M. It is safe to use estrogen replacement all by itself without progestogen. N. B, G, I, and M above. O, C, and H above. P, A, D, and L above. So what was your answer? More importantly, what was your focus? Did your answer depend on whether estrogen was a part of the management, or did it depend on the source of the hormones? Was it a matter of whether the hormones were bioidentical, compounded, pharmaceutical, or herbal? Or was your answer governed by an absolute prohibition against hormones altogether? Do you see how this question makes you grapple with the underlying reason for your answer? And how much much of your answer was specific to endometrial uterine cancer rather than being extrapolated from what you know or just think you know about HRT in general or hormones in general? How much was affected by your current knowledge of breast cancer rather than endometrial uterine cancer? You see, I go to extremes in this education to teach you principles that apply broadly to many things. But I also go to extremes to teach you that you have to be specific about diseases, about circumstances, about distinctions. So my goal with this quiz question was to see if you drew entirely on what you've learned in this unit on endometrial uterine cancer, or if you had a knee-jerk reaction and reverted to the scare tactics you get from sound bites, the media, and your girlfriends. So instead of just showing you the answer, I want to go through the options and make you think about each one separately. And this will also give you a review of the entire unit. So the quiz question was, which of the following statements about menopause management is true after treatment and cure of endometrial uterine cancer? And option A was, it is safe to use progesterone replacement, but unsafe to use estrogen replacement. This option draws on what I taught you in the very first video in this unit. Estrogen causes uterine cancer, while progesterone prevents it. And in video 329, you learned that treatment of endometrial uterine cancer usually involves hysterectomy. So if your uterus is gone and your endometrial uterine cancer is cured, why would the endometrial uterine cancer causing potential of estrogen be of concern? It wouldn't. So this option is false. Once you've cured your endometrial uterine cancer, it is not unsafe to use estrogen replacement. So option A is false. Now for option B, which was, it is safe to use both estrogen and progestogen HRT. This makes more sense, doesn't it? The threat of estrogen is gone, so you can use it if you wish. You are in the land of the free to do as you please. And while you certainly don't need a progestogen, it is still safe to use one if that's what you prefer. Most women would gladly omit it, but the quiz question addressed its safety, not its pesky side effects. Now later in this education, you'll learn about other things that may induce you to forego a progestogen, but for purposes of managing your menopause after curing endometrial uterine cancer, it is safe. So option B is true. Now let's assess option C, which claims it is unsafe to use any form of HRT. Does that make any sense to you? Your menopause management would entail alleviating symptoms of estrogen deficiency and diseases of estrogen deficiency. The one and only risk of using estrogen was endometrial uterine cancer. But you've treated and cured that. So why would it be unsafe to use any form of HRT now? It's actually safer now than it was before you got endometrial uterine cancer. So option C is false. Okay, what about option D, which states it is safe to use bioidentical HRT, but unsafe to use non-bioidentical HRT? I just had to throw this one in there. The use of the word bioidentical is so distorted, and it trips women up all the time. I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just trying to get you to refrain from reverting to your misuse of the word. The word bioidentical just means that the HRT consists of molecules of estrogen and progesterone that are identical to the estrogen and progesterone your own body used to produce. And while that sounds appealing, it's not always better. As I explained in video number 337, synthetic pharmaceutical progestins actually do a better job at preventing thickening of your endometrial lining than bioidentical or compounded progesterones do. So once again, don't let that knee-jerk response mislead you. Option D is false. All right, what about answer option E? It states it is safe to use compounded HRT, but unsafe to use pharmaceutical HRT. This is along the same lines. All I did was substitute the word compounded for the word bioidentical and the word pharmaceutical for the word non-bioidentical. This gets at the root of the misuse of these words again. When you talk about compounded versus pharmaceutical products, you are talking about two very different industries. You may or may not be talking about the products themselves. The compounding industry is completely unregulated, so you never know what you're getting. The pharmaceutical industry is very tightly regulated, so you know exactly what you're getting. And you also know the precise risks of every pharmaceutical product, whereas you don't with compounded preparations. So option E is false. Now for option F, which was, it is safe to use pharmaceutical HRT, but unsafe to use compounded HRT. It's just the reverse of option E. So the logic is the same. They're both safe in the sense that you can take HRT after curing your endometrial uterine cancer. But if you still had your uterus and you changed the concept of safety to the concept of efficacy, the pharmaceutical HRT would better protect your uterus. So option F is false. Okay, what about option G, which read, it is safe to use either pharmaceutical or compounded HRT. That's true, and I'll bet your knee-jerk reaction was to think it's false. I also bet that your misinformation and fear of breast cancer is what made you assume it to be false. No, my dear, after treating and curing your endometrial uterine cancer, you are Lady Liberty, free to manage your menopause as you please. So option G is true. But what about option H, which states, it is safe to use vaginal estrogens that do not travel throughout your body, but unsafe to use any estrogens that do travel throughout your body. Half of this answer is true and the other half is false. It is safe to use vaginal estrogens that do not travel throughout your body, but it is not unsafe to use those that do. I knew you'd probably fall for this one. And once again, it would be because after having cancer, your knee-jerk reaction is to assume that you are not eligible for hormones that travel throughout your body. But why not? The part of your body that was at risk is gone. So where's the threat? Option H is false. Okay, how about option I, which reads, it is safe to use herbs that contain estrogen or progesterone. This one draws on what I taught you in video 335 on herbal options for preventing endometrial uterine cancer. You learned that herbal estrogens and progesterones are very weak, probably too weak to pose much of a threat. But they are also impossible to quantify for purposes of balancing estrogen and progesterone. But does that matter anymore? I mean, if you've been cured of endometrial uterine cancer, where's the problem? It doesn't matter anymore. So this option is true. Once again, you are Lady Liberty, at liberty to use herbs as you please. Now for option J, which states, it is unsafe to use herbs that contain estrogen or progesterone. Well, you already know that's not true. You know you can use any herbs you want. You are Lady Liberty, remember? So going on to option K. It says, It is safe to use estrogen-containing herbs, but not progesterone-containing herbs. Most likely you assumed that this was false, but probably for the wrong reason. You probably thought it was false because of the misconception that it is unsafe to use estrogen-containing herbs after treatment and cure of endometrial uterine cancer. But it isn't unsafe. You can use estrogen-containing herbs all you want. You can eat estrogen-containing food too. So option K is false. What about option L? It states it is safe to use progesterone-containing herbs, but not estrogen-containing herbs. You probably answered that one as true. Do you see how programmed you are to fear estrogen, even when there is nothing left to warrant that fear? All herbs are fine once your endometrial uterine cancer is cured. They were fine before, too. It just wasn't possible to quantitate their effect on your uterus and balance your estrogen against your progesterone. So option L is false. And finally, option M. It states it is safe to use estrogen replacement all by itself without progestogen. Horror upon horrors! You probably thought this one was the absolute most incorrect of all the options, but actually it's the most correct. There is no reason whatsoever for you to use a progestogen any longer. And there is no risk in taking estrogen all by itself. It will actually make your menopause management very smooth and easy. So option M is true. You are Lady Liberty, and you shall be treated as such. So here's the entire quiz question with the correct answer highlighted in bold font. Here are the options that were correct in answer to the question, which was, which of the following statements is true about menopause management after treatment and cure of endometrial uterine cancer? B, it is safe to use both estrogen and progestogen HRT. G, it is safe to use either pharmaceutical or compounded HRT. I, it is safe to use herbs that contain estrogen or progesterone. And M, it is safe to use estrogen replacement all by itself without progestogen. In a nutshell, if you've had endometrial uterine cancer that is cured, you can go on about your business and manage your menopause however you please. You have no restrictions because of having had that cancer. You are Lady Liberty. Wasn't that fun? Did you see where you fell prey to misconceptions? Did hype about avoiding HRT after breast cancer cloud your thinking about HRT after endometrial uterine cancer? This is why I strive to be very specific in my teaching. You have to focus on each disease entity individually. That's why it's so important for you to know about these different diseases and your risks for each. So, a somewhat goofy analogy to your situation after having had, treated, and cured endometrial uterine cancer would be this. If your grass grows out of control and you replace the grass with gravel, you can still use fertilizer on the bushes. The grass was your endometrium. The gravel is now the absence of your uterus after treating and curing your endometrial uterine cancer. And the fertilizer is estrogen. The bushes still need fertilizer. And just because the fertilizer made the grass grow too much, it will not cause the same problem for the bushes. They will still benefit from the fertilizer. The problematic part of your yard is gone, and as such, you are free to tend to what's left of your yard and make it pretty. So the summary for today is that after treatment and cure of endometrial uterine cancer, you have all options for menopause management available to you. You are Lady Liberty. You may use estrogen alone or estrogen and progestogen in any form. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? And that does it for our unit on endometrial uterine cancer. And since your uterus is connected to your cervix, I think it's prudent to start discussing cervical cancer next. You wouldn't want to confuse the two now, would you? For consultations, you know that you can go to menopausetailor.me anytime, and I will be delighted to meet you and help you. On Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram, you can stalk me. And subscriptions happen right here and now for both my newsletter and this YouTube channel. So until next week, bye!